In 1956, Elvis Presley came out with Hound Dog. The song became a mainstream hit, but it was popular in black communities years before. That song was originally recorded by Willie Mae Big Mama Thornton, along with Johnny Otis and his orchestra. As the story goes, Mike Stoller and Jerry Lieber wrote the song especially for her. Once Elvis got a hold of it, the song went on to top the charts. 10 million copies and a number of lawsuits later, Elvis went down in history as an American superstar with a multi-million-dollar estate. Thornton, on the other hand, died broke, and the only credit she got for the song was a single $500 check. To this day, almost every genre of music, from rock and roll to house, has roots in black artistry. White artists often adapt black music, but black artists don't always get the credit. In many cases, a lack of copyright protection leaves them vulnerable. That means it's easier for their creative works to be appropriated, ultimately never receiving credit when it's due. So if we aren't the ones stewarding and protecting our music, could we risk it being watered down so much that its original sources are forgotten? We know the problem. Now let's get to the root of it. I'm Paris Alston, and this is Rooted. Even if we are the best people to remember our own music, there's a lot to consider to get it right. We spoke with award-winning composer and vocalist Candace Hoyes about how black artists can thoughtfully pay homage to their predecessors. Candace, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I'm so excited.
I am too, because we're talking about music, right?
Yes.
And music is all around us. It's so fulfilling. And we always want to revisit it. So when we do that, what exactly is the difference between remembering and reclaiming music?
Well, I feel that if there were a metaphor, it would be like remembering is like the grounding. I think that's the first step in, even if you're composing something, you're remembering things that you've heard or ideas or stories you want to tell, at least for me. And then I feel like reclaiming is kind of like the air under our wings. That's what's going to be, where you're taking an action to forge your own path. And I think that's as much a part of my process as anything.
And you're doing this with your new project, Expecting.
Yes.
Candace Hoyes, right there. Beautiful album cover, by the way.
Thank you.
And this is an album full of original work, but also a lot of covers, some of
Yes.
which are the first ever.
Yes.
One of those includes Minnie Riperton's Expecting, which is a song from her classic album, Come to My Garden.
Yes.
Why did you want to resurface that work?
Oh my, it was such a self-discovery. I have always loved Minnie Riperton. And for me, my journey with Minnie started when I was a little kid. And my parents had a den filled with Scandinavian furniture. And my parents are immigrants from Jamaica. And everything that they have, they bought and saved, year after year. And one of the things that they had was a beautiful Scandinavian hutch with a record player and a double paneled door. And I would lay on the carpet, that thick, like 90s carpet, and open there and just pull out these vinyls and look at the covers and wonder who these people were. And when I heard Minnie's voice, it just stood out to me from all the rest. It's so celestial, it's so high soaring. And even at that time, I didn't know that I was an operatic soprano, which is what I turned out to be. And I hadn't sung or even tried to sing anything like that. But the story began in my mind. And so I think as I started to think what would be my first statement as an artist in a recorded format, in an analog archive of these are songs, I've performed, yes, for several years and all over the world, but what would be like my hallmark statement in wax? Minnie just came to my mind. And in fact, no one else has recorded what I selected to do. So it's been something I had to kind of stretch myself to take on, and I think that I was at times very reverent and like had to take pause about it. So it was quite a journey.
And I understand part of that journey was connecting with the stellar songwriter and producer behind that album. Tell me a little bit about that.
Oh, yes. So that album is written, produced, and orchestrated by the great Charles Stepney, who is a Chicago born and bred composer who was a real catalyst for Black music in especially Chicago, but really around the world. Charles Stepney, as I mentioned, wrote and produced Come to My Garden, but he was also responsible for a lot of the great music from Chess Records at the time, and greatly credited for kind of forging Earth, Wind, and Fire in a fundamental way, and writing a lot of great of the songs and anthems that we recognize, like Shining Star. And you always notice in his music, not only these lush orchestrations, which are really ahead of their time, but very Afro-psychedelic, highly, like, potently imaginative visions of Black liberation, of world peace, of a spirituality and a faith that lives up to its promise. And so I felt so, as I matured, into a citizen, into an artist, a mother, I was like, I need to really trace that through. And so expecting is about also reckoning with the unexpected and, kind of taking my dream space and spinning it into sound.
And when you talk about this, I mean, it's clear that obviously you had a personal connection that goes back to childhood. But it's also clear that it's not just you saying, hey, I like the song, so I want to cover it. And how does that speak to the way that our tributes of our music can differ from when other people do it?
Yes, that's an amazing question, because I think as a live artist, we can be trepidatious about picking up someone else's work because it's hard to be compared. And as an artist, perhaps we set out wanting to feel like we're unique in a certain way. The way that I like to think about it, though, especially with recorded works, whether it's a painting or an album or a book, is that we express ourselves in the moment and it becomes a kind of snapshot. And then inevitably, someone will come along and pick it up and carry it forward from where you left it. And so in making an album, you're stepping into a lineage that you're actually already in. It just felt like the right time for me as an artist, with my command of what I want to say and also what I've been dreaming about, to commit to it. And so that's kind of how I talk to myself about interpreting other people's works, but it's quite heavy. And, in this age where there's a question, it's no question for me, but for some, about whether machines can make music and so forth, like, I know that what I do is so much in my DNA. Like, so much of my singing is spun and created from my body, my memory, and my technique. And so it's like, I don't really worry so much about comparison.
But do you think that in this day and age in the industry, there is a lot of, resurfacing music just because it might be what's the hot thing at the moment versus a deep unearthing?
That's a great question. Yes, I think that you can see all kinds of wonderful projects, and you can see projects that maybe are somewhat controversial for revisiting people's music. And yes, it can be for commercial reasons or commodification or trying to replicate what someone else has done on the one hand. And that can fall flat, I think, when it's held up against songs that become timeless, like a Come to My Garden, an album that's going to deepen your references and transport you no matter when you encounter it. That was my experience, because Come to My Garden was made before I was born. And as it turns out, you know, there's some of those selections that no one has ever touched since 1970. And so, yeah, I think that it's something that you know, some people do pursue for a commercial reason, but I think that can only go so far, Paris. I feel like you got to feel it on a much deeper, like it has to come from a deeper place for it to really hold water to the original. Has to be taken on for the right reasons.
And it makes me think about one artist who has been bathing in reclamation over the past few years, Beyonce, right?
Yes.
With Renaissance
Yes.
and really shining light on the Black techno artists and other artists, right, who laid the foundation for modern day house music, of course, country, and all of these artists whose names were whitewashed in this genre, in a genre that she was also kept out of. So would you say what she's doing is justice, or does it still kind of fall victim to some of that commercialization?
I think it raises a great question, which is what genuine and enduring art is supposed to do. It puts back on us as listeners a question about the same thing that you're thinking of. Is this bearing the full legacy of what it's referencing for the commercial moment? And I think that there's sometimes that you step along the path into honoring the legacy, and there's sometimes you kind of fall or wander astray. I think that she responds to that question in an interesting way by making many albums. And, you know, there's that, I don't think it's, you know, that saying that as Black women, we contain multitudes, we carry multitudes. And having a serial approach to recording, I think that's a very sound way to think about the archives and the legacy.
A sound business decision.
The business part. I mean, there's some things that I could take that I would have done differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking about the Target.
Listen, I was about to say she is married to Jay-Z.
I'm thinking about Reasonable Doubt right now, you know?
Yeah.
So there may
What are you thinking about it?
What am I thinking? That's a no from me. That's a no from me. I don't quite understand it. And there's something about it that I turn the other way from it. I have to shun it. Because I do think that how you sell, where you sell your music, where you play your music, and just the works that we choose to revisit, it's a sacred undertaking. You're engaging with Black memory. You're engaging with, the sacred nature of your own artistic process. And yeah, for me, where, the platform that I use or the store that my music is affiliated with, it does matter. I don't know. I do think I consider myself more of a performing artist than a kind of hard and fast brand. But when you, make purchases of teams and things, I don't deal in that type of budget. So yeah, I think I see myself
the billionaire's budget.
The billionaire budget is not what I work more from a frame of art through collective engagement. I work. My treasure is the affiliations and relationships that I work and deal in.
And I think this raises a question, too, because we are seeing more and more sampling and covering in today's music. And people always say, today's music isn't that original. And I believe in recent years, nearly 20% of the music that's been on the Billboard charts has had some sort of sample. And for me, it makes me wonder, well, are we doing that just for the love of the music, or is it more of an industry decision?
Well, I can think of specific cases. I was really I love Chloe Bailey, and I was thinking a lot about Resurrection and Timbaland, and hearing some of the samples of like 4-Page Letter and different, like, just even his like tagging his song the way he used to. It's really beautiful to sample in that way, where you're like accessing the collective Black memory and maybe amplifying. Maybe the second time you sample something, you're giving it more shine than the first time it was presented. You know how they say with a child, they have to taste something 7 times before they know if they like it. I think that there's a real whimsy that we need in the culture that sampling touches on and is motivated by, and also even time travel.
Yes, 100%.
So there's like a really strong case for it. I think that, as with anything though, you want someone really coming from a resonant place when they're holding the paintbrush and painting the whole picture of it. Like, what's the context of the sample? Is it reductive, or is it making something that enriches, the story? I sample, actually, on my album, Zora Neale Hurston several times, and the radio broadcast where she was interviewed in the 1940s, that station had actually gone out of business, and her radio sample, the interview, had been actually kind of abandoned. And so I took that and started composing a song around it. So that I kind of engage with this question of my generation and people younger than me and even older than me who do sample, but I chose something that's going to make people say, well, who is Zora Neale Hurston?
Right. It's an education in many regards, because I would bet that a lot of people who were listening to Cowboy Carter, for instance, were then trying to figure out who some of these artists were, like who that
Rhiannon Giddens,
exactly,
amazing,
exactly, or even like I like "Oh Louisiana" by Chuck Berry is like the original is in my like songs, because it's such a nostalgic track, right?
Yes.
But arguably without Cowboy Carter, I wouldn't have arrived at that point.
I agree. I think also you can find Cowboy Carter, bumping out of people's car windows. It's being played in spaces where she knows she really occupies, and like that creates intergenerational conversation, and that creates new creative thoughts. There'll be more people visiting that music. So in that way, it's fantastic. And I mean, I really rock with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think in this case, in the Chloe Bailey case, at least, people are like, is he trying to make another Aaliyah? Is he trying to replace her legacy?
Well, we have to be really like, I think even with Aaliyah and with Minnie Riperton, they're both 2 Black women who had a completely stunning, unique talent. Like, they go by one name in people's mind, and they're well alive in our imaginations, but we lost them at such a young age that we also feel somewhat protective of, well, careful how you speak on her name. Like, yeah, it's quite delicate, actually.
It is. And we know that legality is also a question that looms in the background here. Because when we think about especially some of those country and rock and roll artists who Beyonce has been lifting up, they didn't always, and Black artists of every genre, right, didn't always get the credit that they deserved for the music that they laid the foundation for. We've talked about Elvis, for instance, and Hound Dog, and how Big Mama Thornton was along with Johnny Otis, were the originators of that song, right? But Big Mama Thornton died broke. And so what exactly is the legal process around covering and sampling, and how can we preserve Black artistry within that?
Well, you raise a richness of points that do converge. So in the case of certain artists like Big Mama Thornton or a Bessie Smith, those are in what's called the public domain. There's a wonderful competition that I won called the Public Song Competition, which is a public radio competition encouraging living artists to go into the archive and pull out something of the public domain. So that means, and then make a new composition or a new recording. Public domain means that you don't have to actually engage with any lawyers. You can use it. So anybody who's listening today who hears a sample from a certain year and earlier, you go right ahead and use it creatively, and you can make money off of it and don't have to pay anyone. However, the year changes every year in time that we move forward. We gain another year worth of archives into public domain. Now, that's a legal thing. And then, of course, if it's in time, later in time, then and it's not in the public domain, you're going to use certain websites like Songfile or correspond with an estate to get clearance. And on streaming platforms where my music is, and most people, they're going to actually clear it for you. So you don't have to file anything separate. That said, if you make a vinyl or some other, what they call, like a tactile musical product, a CD or a cassette, that's mechanical rights, and you would have to file that. You pay a fee, and is this getting too granular? So it's usually pretty reasonable. There are a few exceptions to the rule, but by and large, anybody with a good sense of, getting online and making their own stuff can find a way. I would say it's pretty accessible to sample. But what you're talking about with the originators of a sound or a song, or, really, there have been times in our country's history where this music, it becomes synonymous with a social movement, civil rights. I mean, certainly when you talk about Big Mama Thornton, women's rights, and also LGBTQIA, all of these larger social movements, those artists are very much undercredited for their contributions in that way. And so there's I think a deeper question that's not legal, and it's not about dollars and cents. It's about really understanding the historical roots of something, and really, as we talked about at the beginning, like about reclamation, so much of that is not just your ability to make something new, even if it's good or interesting, but also how can you, show intention and remembrance while you do that.
So lastly, Candace, do you think that all musical legacies are touchable, or are there some that should be left alone?
All musical legacies are touchable if the touch is a caress.
I love that. We always love a caress, right?
Right.
Candace, this has been amazing. Thank you so very much.
Oh, you're a joy. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much to Candace Hoyes for sharing how we can best remember the music that has shaped our lives. That's it for this episode of Rooted. Be sure to keep up with us on our social channels. And until next time, stay rooted, stay composed, and as always, stay tuned.